The LA Clippers just dropped their fourth straight game, and Paul George continues to struggle. Why is he struggling, and what can he do better? How can the Clippers get back on track? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline, where the game starts. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, heading into my 18th season as a Clipper fan, or should I say just started my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod, and of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, where I cover LA sports, mainly LA basketball. Go film vlogs when I go to games. I'll be going to the game on Monday night, Clippers Rockets, filming a vlog for that. So check that out, Dime Dropper on YouTube. And of course, subscribe to Dime Dropper Podcast. Subscribe to Locked On Clippers on YouTube and comment on today's pinned question. Can the Clippers... Actually, you know what? Let me rephrase that. Today's pinned question will be, what would you grade Paul George's start to the season so far? I want to hear it. Don't hold back, Clipper Nation, because that's what I'm going to be starting with today. The Clippers lost their fourth consecutive game on Sunday afternoon, a game that I actually had chalked up as a loss before the season even started, just based on the recent history playing against the New Orleans Pelicans. And they came to town, even without Brandon Ingram, and gave the Clippers the business. 112-91 was the final score for the Pels. In this segment, I'm going to be talking about what I really think is the number one issue right now, and that's Paul George's play. And then I'm going to be talking about the small ball lineups and why they've been so ineffective thus far. And then, of course, I'm going to end off with some positives, because there were some, again. But let's get right into it. Paul George. Let me just give you guys a stat. Ever since his 40-point game against the Sacramento Kings, shout out to Joey Lynn on Twitter for posting this, Paul George has averaged 13.3 points per game on 31% shooting from the field and 22% from three. Mind you, Kawhi Leonard has played in one game since that Sacramento game. That was against the Suns, and he played around 20 minutes. If Kawhi Leonard is going to miss games, and by the way, Kawhi also missed the game on Sunday and will miss the game on Monday, so there may be a reason to be concerned. I'm a little concerned about him. Did he have a major setback? It's just right now, it's just looking like a disaster for the Clippers. But Paul George playing this way, I know he's going to snap out of his funk, but he needs to play better. If Kawhi Leonard is not going to play, he's got to play better. He's got to be the star that everybody knows that he is. He's got to be that 25 points per game scorer that everybody knows that he is. And a thing I really don't like is, again, it's that lack of aggression. You know, he's just settling for a lot of jump shots, a lot of tough jump shots, and he's not even making his open ones right now, really. He shot 5 for 19 from the field and 2 for 8 from deep. And again, not shooting over 20 shot attempts. Now, you might be saying, why should he shoot over 20 shot attempts when he's shooting that poorly? I just think it's a mindset thing to start the game. Like, I think he needs to be aggressive, get to the free throw line right away. The guy shot 2 free throws in the game. Clippers shot 13 free throws as a whole. Just not a lot of penetration. And I think that's been a consistent theme the entire season so far. I know it's only been 6 games, but the Clippers are not getting easy baskets. They're not getting to the rim and forcing the defense to collapse. And as a result, they're not getting the same good looks at three that they're accustomed to. And I mean, if you really think about it, last season, the Clippers didn't get very many good looks from three. They shot, actually, no, I wouldn't say that. They did shoot, they had good looks from three, but the offense for the Clippers last season wasn't that good. And that's because of that very reason. I mean, you don't have Paul George, you don't have Kawhi Leonard the whole year. Norman Powell was a late addition to the team. And Marcus Morris Sr. is playing much better this season than he did last season. Even though he was good last season, the way he started this season, and I'm going to talk about that in the positive segment, he's been amazing. But the Clippers' offense was not that great last season. And so far, it's been even worse. And part of that's because they're not causing the defense to collapse. A lot of guys are settling for a lot of jump shots. Reggie Jackson, 4 for 12, 1 for 7 from deep. This was his performance on Sunday. He's been poor to start the season. And of course, when Reggie's not hitting, his defense is very average to poor. Average is putting it nicely. He wasn't doing anything on Sunday. But Paul George is held to a higher standard. He needs to be a lot better. He was 2 for 8 from deep. And as I said, the 2 free throw attempts, and obviously he makes both, is very concerning to me. He's not getting to the rim, and then you might think, is he 100%? Is he still sick? And apparently he said after the game that he had trouble breathing in the game. So clearly, that's a clear sign that he's not 100%, but he should be okay very soon. It's just like, how long can the Clippers wait? I know everybody wants to say they're going to peak later in the season, they're going to do that, but how comfortable are you playing 3 series potentially on the road? I mean, if this continues, the Clippers are going to be, because we don't know when Kawhi Leonard's going to come back. Paul George will snap out of the funk at some point. He's that good. He will. Hopefully it starts on Monday night against the Houston Rockets. But if the Clippers don't clean this up right away, they're going to find themselves in a tough spot standings-wise. And you don't want to make it so that you have to do too much work in the second half of the season to get to the place that you want to get to. Now, the good news is the Denver Nuggets are struggling right now. The Golden State Warriors are struggling right now. The teams at the top of the Western Conference are like the Portland Trailblazers, the Utah Jazz, New Orleans, who I actually think New Orleans will be is a real deal team. But some of those teams up there are not going to be there for the long haul. They're going to inevitably slip down in the standings. So it's not panic mode just yet. But it's really concerning that Paul George said to literally in front of me, I had the video at the forum a couple weeks ago where he said, I'm in the best shape I've been in. I feel 100% healthy. I feel so focused. And he's come out and laid an egg, multiple eggs to start the season. I mean, so many eggs you can probably have an Easter egg hunt at this point. This guy is one of the most talented players that the game has seen in the last 20 years. You can make an argument in terms of one-on-one skill in an open gym. One of the most talented, skilled players you'll ever see scoring the ball, like in a Tracy McGrady type of mold. But there's a lot of things with Paul George, his decision-making, oftentimes his IQ, and mainly his confidence and how constantly wavering it is that causes him to just play so below his talent level on many occasions that makes you have doubts about his ability to be a champion, quite frankly. And obviously, with Kawhi Leonard, it lessens the load. But then there's that other crowd of people that think that Paul George plays better when Kawhi's out. And he's not making any of those people sound good right now either with playing the way that he is. And Paul George said after the game, I was poor tonight. I've been poor the last couple of games. I'll get it together. I've committed to my work and I'm committed to my work and committed to this team succeeding. And I don't doubt that he's committed to his work. And I don't doubt that he's going to play better. But he even said it himself. We got to raise the intensity on both sides, and it starts with me. Absolutely, Paul. The thing is, at this point as a fan, I want to see it. I'm tired of hearing about it. And all that I've been hearing, it's all been hearing this summer with the Clippers. Hearing that they're going to be focused. Hearing that they recognize the opportunity at hand to win this championship. And I just think that starting the season, it's been a lack of urgency, a lack of realizing that they had an easy schedule and they've completely blown this opportunity. Now, I did say I wanted them to go 8-2 to start the season, and obviously they've blown that opportunity. But they still have a chance to go 6-4. I mean, Houston, they have 2 games against Houston, 1 at home, 1 on the road. And then also the Utah Jazz and the San Antonio Spurs. But they're not playing bad basketball at all right now in any sense. They're playing better basketball than the Clippers. So the Clippers got to get their act together. Paul George needs to get his act together. And I hope he's just feeling better health-wise. I wonder what kind of sickness he had, if he had the flu or something. But I also want to say this. Paul George had 4 shot attempts in the restricted area, and he made 3. Those were 3 of his 5 shots. So again, he needs to be far more aggressive. He needs to catch the ball in better areas. The constant dancing at the top of the key is too much. He took a lot of contested threes that he didn't need to take. There was even one time in the first quarter, he had Jose Alvarado on him, and he settled for a contested 3 and didn't even hit rim. I mean, that's just not good enough from a guy of Paul George's stature. So Paul George needs to be better. That's the first thing. It always starts with the stars. And, I can point to so many other things, and I'm going to elaborate more in the next segment. But Paul George needs to be better. Point blank, end of story. He also turns the ball over too much, and is turning the ball over too much right now. 4 for him in this game. and the Clippers had 14, 9 in the first half. So even though they cleaned that up in the second half, it just wasn't good enough. But coming up, I am going to be talking about the other things that are wrong with the Clippers. The small ball lineup. Why has it been so poor to start the season? Going to be talking about that coming up. The Clippers are minus 9.5 to win the game against the Houston Rockets tonight. Considering the way they've been playing, I don't know if that's a very smart line, but you know what? Being the Clipper fan that I am, I'd say bet on the Clippers tonight. Although minus 9.5 seems like a little bit much. However, you know what? I'm going to be confident here. Bet on the Clippers to win the game. Bet on that line. The way you can do that is go to betonline.net. It's your number one source for all your basketball, football, betting information. You can find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news podcasts, and in-depth analysis on every game. And as always, BetOnline remains your committed source for all your sports wagering info with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there. And the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events is on BetOnline. It includes MLB. The World Series are underway. MMA. Boxing, golf, and of course, the World Cup is so soon. I cannot wait. Just head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Bet Online, where the game starts. All right, so let's talk about how this game really went. I thought the Clippers actually played their best first quarter of the season, which is really funny because they've been so bad in first quarters. Both games against Oklahoma City, poor. And then obviously the game against Phoenix, just terrible. And they actually came out with more intensity, more urgency to start this Pelicans game. And that's rare on a Sunday matinee game. They usually have dud performances to start games at times, the Clippers, on those games. But they actually played with good intensity to start the game. And they won the first quarter 25-18. And by the way, Marcus Morris Sr. did return to the lineup. And Norman Powell went to the bench, and Ty Lue said that's because he wants to get Norman used to his role when Kawhi comes back, and I really like that. I said that on multiple podcasts that I want Norman Powell back on the bench so we can have Paul George at the 2. Well, Terrence Mann is playing the 2, and I actually really like that because he's a 6'5", 6'6" wing that can defend, and I always am pro defense, and I'm always pro Terrence Mann. So Terrence Mann coming in for Norman Powell, I think, is a good substitution to the starting lineup until Kawhi Leonard comes back. Now, I obviously want John Wall to start over Reggie. Again, John Wall only playing 21 minutes, Reggie playing 27, but I just don't know when that restriction is going to be lifted, and it's really frustrating me. But let me just say this. Marcus Morris Sr. started the game brilliantly. Again, he was hitting mid-ranges, he was hitting threes. He was just awesome in every sense. Got the Clippers off to a good start. I thought he set a good tone. And I thought the Clippers defense was pretty good as well. Ivica Zubac started the game decently. He started the game guarding Zion and actually did a decent job in the first quarter. 25-18 was the score in favor of the Clippers after one. So that's a positive. They played better in the first quarter. And one thing I also noticed, the Clippers went zoned at times, a lot of the times in this game, and they've been doing it a lot to start the season, and I've expressed that I don't like it. They did some zone to keep Zion out of the paint in the first quarter, and I didn't mind it. But as the game went on and the Clippers went zone without Zubac in the game, that is just a suicidal thing to me. To go zone without a proper center in the middle, especially when you already have to worry about the defensive 3-second count. So in the NBA, you can't really play proper zones. Like, you can't really play a true 2-3 zone with your center standing and camping in the paint like you can at youth levels or at the NCAA level or the FIBA level. You have to keep 1 foot in, 1 foot out, or make sure you tag a man. And when you're doing that without a proper center in the paint, that's feast city for the other team. And the Pelicans really feasted on the Clippers' small ball lineups in the second half mainly. But I thought PG was settling in the first quarter. And then I thought the small ball actually looked decent in the second quarter. And Norman Powell played really well again. So if you want to go positives, Norman Powell was really, really solid in this game. And that's really good. I think he got his confidence back after the game against, who was it? I'm blanking right now. Against the Thunder, the last game. But, I got to also give the Pelicans some credit. CJ McCollum was great, especially to end the second quarter and to start the third quarter. He shot 9 for 19 and was 4 for 8 from 3. A very solid, efficient 22 points. And a guy that really impressed me in this game, Najee Marshall. You saw him get sporadic minutes at times last year. In the playoffs, he didn't have too big of a role. He was one of the players in the rotation that got the least amount of minutes. But he was hitting his threes. He was defending Paul George really well. He just had an amazing game. 17 points for him on 7 for 13 shooting and 3 for 5 from deep. And the Clippers, despite all that, they didn't end the second quarter very well. And that's mainly because they were turning the ball over too much. 9 turnovers, and still Paul George had not done anything, really. But Norman Powell, Luke Kennard, Amir Coffey, here's a big issue with me, and it goes into the small ball lineup thing I'm going to talk about. But Amir Coffey played 14 minutes in the game. And some of those were in garbage time after the Clippers waved the white flag for the 4th straight game. But Amir Coffey in the second quarter actually had decent minutes. Again, a solid defender. He made a nice extra pass. I think it was to Luke Kennard. There was another time where in the second quarter, Marcus Morris made an extra pass to Paul George for an open right corner 3 to put the Clippers up 4. But then you just didn't really see him for the rest of the game until garbage time, which is just a very questionable decision by Ty Lue. And as much as I am a Ty Lue fanatic, I think that he's had a really bad start to the season. I think the small ball lineups have been poor. I think that he's also shown a lack of urgency as a coach. I think that the Clippers front office and coaching staff are not the front office, but the coaching staff right now is too comfortable. And I think they're not showing urgency that they want to set a tone in these first 82 games. In these first 10 games to have a great 82 game season. And the thing that Clipper fans are telling me right now over and over again is doesn't matter how you start, it's how you finish. Playoffs aren't until April. We got so much time. And that's all true. But I don't know. I just tend to lean on the side of history. And I don't think the Clippers are this team that gets super lucky all the time. Like the basketball gods are like, hey, I'm going to give the Clippers some love today, this season. I'm going to make it so that they actually get lucky for the first time in their freaking history. We always get the short end of the stick. We always get all the bad juju all the time, it seems. So that's why I feel like things just need to go right for the Clippers. And by going right, I mean getting a top 3 seed. Now, of course, the Clippers can still do that, but I just think with this approach, the way they're talking about Kawhi, the way Kawhi's body seems to be, it just seems tough. But going back to the Ty Lue thing, the Clippers scored 15 points in the third quarter. 15. The game was tied at halftime. And the third quarter has been the one that the Clippers have actually done well in this season. And they laid it like just an egg. 26-15, they were outscored in the third quarter by New Orleans. CJ McCollum started out with a couple of threes, but it was really the offense for me that wasn't up to scratch for the Clippers. And the funny part is they cut the game down to 62-61, but after that, they slowly just kind of fell apart. And I think Reggie Jackson, as much as I love the guy, and I'm going to keep saying that because I really don't want to get personal here, but he's off to a bad start to the season. And when he's not making shots, he doesn't defend. He doesn't really do any intangible things to make a difference. Like keeping Terrence Mann and Amir Coffey on the bench for Reggie sometimes, it's kind of grown tiresome. We lack athleticism with those guys on the bench. We lack great point of attack defense. And when Reggie Jackson's not hitting shots, it's really tough. He can ball pound. He can turn the ball over. And we just need better from Reggie. Because when Paul George and Reggie are playing like that to start games, it's just puts the Clippers in a little bit of a hole. And even though it wasn't a bad start to this game, it was a bad start to the third quarter, and that's a lot of it on the starting lineup. And, Reggie Jackson, committed an offensive foul at the 6 minute and 13 second mark of the third quarter. And, he still stays in the game. Stays in the game all the way until let me look. My goodness. To the 2 minute and 10 second mark. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. I didn't even realize he was in that long. He was in the game till the 2 minute and 10 second mark, and a huge, huge reason why the Clippers fell apart, and this is getting me into the main takeaway in this segment, the small ball lineup. If you want to run this small ball stuff with Zubats out of the game, by the way, Robert Covington didn't play, and he's a big part of that small ball lineup, as is Kawhi Leonard. You need to play a wing-heavy small ball lineup, not a guard-heavy small ball lineup. Terrence Mann, Amir Coffey, Sr., Paul George, these guys need to be at the forefront. You can't have Reggie Jackson, Luke Kennard, and Norman Powell out there at once. They're 3 guys under 6'5", especially when the Pelicans are playing with Najee Marshall, CJ McCollum as their smallest guy, Larry Nance, Zion. They were just bigger than the Clippers. They were getting easier baskets. They were causing secondary defenders to come help, which were creating open threes. And the Clippers, are already settling a little too much. But even when they got to the basket and a help defender would come, a lot of Clippers were turning the ball over or just having tunnel vision because that size makes it harder for you. When you have a 6'8" guy coming to help as opposed to a 6'2" chair coming to help, it's a big difference. And that's one thing that Ty Lue needs to stop. Those small ball lineups with, I already think 2 guys under 6'4". If you guys remember my starting lineup, I wanted it to be Nico Batum at the 4, Kawhi Leonard at the 3, Paul George at the 2 to start the season, because I don't like in today's league 2 guys under 6'4" in your lineup, let alone 3 guys under 6'5" in the lineup with Kennard, Wall, and Norman, or Reggie, Kennard, and Norman. It's just way too small, especially when you don't have Zubats in the game and you don't have Rocco and you don't have Kawhi. Big mistake, in my opinion, by Ty Lue. And the Pelicans just slowly took advantage of the Clippers missing open shots and got better looks than the Clippers and just kind of built their lead. And I think the Clippers had chances. They had open threes, Marcus Morris, Nico Batum, these guys, and Reggie Jackson. They had good looks, but they just couldn't get them to fall. And I just think this Clipper team right now doesn't play with consistent focus throughout 4 quarters. And that is something that you got to be able to control, is that consistent focus and effort throughout 4 quarters. I think when New Orleans made their run, they just kind of folded. And again, I really don't want to put it all on Paul George, but it starts from the top. He needs to be much better, because Zion had 21 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists. He's their star player. He's doing his thing. CJ McCollum had 22 points. He's playing like a star. So when they had the 2 best players in the court in that game, it's very hard for the Clippers to win, especially when they're already missing Kawhi and Robert Covington. So tough loss for the Clippers, 26-15 in the third quarter and 34-24 in the fourth quarter. John Wall, this was one of his more pedestrian games, in my opinion. Only 8 points for him and 6 assists. Thankfully, he only turned the ball over 1 time. Was 2 for 5 from the field in 21 minutes. I thought Luke Kennard was actually pretty decent. I just think he was put in positions that were tough for him in terms of those small ball units. He had 7 points and 6 boards. But coming up, going to be talking about some of the positives to take away and what I hope to see in the Monday game against the Houston Rockets. Because, oh boy, the Clippers need to get back to winning ways before this gets really ugly and then the media starts jumping on them. They're 0-2 at home right now. Got to get a win. Going to be talking about those keys coming up. All right. So the Clippers got the Houston Rockets on Monday night. And the Houston Rockets right now are a young team with a lot of athleticism. They're 1-6. But the thing about these young teams, as we saw with the Thunder, and by the way, the Oklahoma City Thunder beat the Dallas Mavericks in an amazing overtime comeback win. So that honestly makes me feel a little bit better about the losses. But then again, you got to hold the Clippers to a higher standard here. The Houston Rockets are spunky, young, filled with youth. They have no experienced players besides former Clipper Eric Gordon. But they're going to be an athletic team. Jalen Green, Kevin Porter, these guys are athletic. Jabari Smith, the rookie from Auburn. The Clippers need to be alert and start the game out well. I think that's the first key. They got to start the game out well. And Paul George needs to be better. He needs to be aggressive. He needs to try to get guys in foul trouble, get to the basket a little bit, start in the mid-post. What I noticed about the mid-post is when Paul George catches the ball there, he gets double-teamed. That's going to create open shots, even if he doesn't have to make a move. Doesn't even have to put the ball on the floor. They're going to double and he'll get open shots. I think Paul needs to just be smarter. Clippers need to obviously take better care of the ball. 14 turnovers is better than the last couple of games, but still just too much. And I also think Ty Lue needs to play Terrence Mann and Amir Coffey longer. Terrence Mann played 22 minutes on Sunday, and he had 6 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, but no turnovers, and was 3 for 5 from the field. He missed his 2 threes, but he still shoots efficiently. And then Amir Coffey played 14 minutes only and was 2 for 2. I actually really like what Brewmaster brings to the table. He's a wing. He's athletic. He gets to the basket. Not a bad open 3 guy. And he adds athleticism and youth to the lineup. And that's the main thing with Terrence Mann and Amir Coffey. They have athleticism and youth. And the Clippers tend to struggle against teams like that. And Houston is one of those teams. And the Clippers need to come out and get a win in this game. I think Marcus Morris Sr. again is going to have a good game. I think Ivica Zubac just had a tough one against the Pelicans. I think it was just weird between the small ball, the going zone. I feel like I didn't remember seeing that many high pick and rolls with Zubac in this game. It's very interesting that the Clippers have just been very confusing so far to start the season. But Norman Powell getting back in good form is a huge thing for the Clippers. I think that him coming off the bench is the wave. I think him coming off the bench is what's going to work going forward. 18 points for Norman, 7 for 14 from the field, and 3 for 7 from deep in the game. Great sign. Still turn the ball over twice, which you can do without, but in 25 minutes, you're probably going to have a turnover considering how he handles the ball and how aggressive he was being. And I think Norman Powell was the best player for the Clippers in this game. Marcus Morris Sr. not too far behind, but again, it's picking best players in a loss. It's just tough. And you got to give the Pelicans credit. They shot 42% from 3, 15 for 36. Clippers shot a pretty abysmal 11 for 39 from 3, only 28%. And they were also 8 for 13 from the foul line. Not that those 5 free throws would have made much of a difference. Shot 61.5% from the foul line. But Clippers need to get back on track. Houston's a good game to do it. And I'll be there, and I'll be posting a vlog on my YouTube channel that'll be up on Tuesday. And, of course, be recording Locked On Clippers when I come back from the game, and getting it out on Tuesday, hopefully, as well. So make sure to subscribe to Locked On Clippers. Make sure to subscribe to Dime Dropper. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. And, of course, answer today's question. What would you rank Paul George's start to the season so far? And what's the biggest thing you think he needs to improve on? Besides just he needs to play better. Give me a specific thing you want to see from him more. That's it for me today, guys. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully the Clippers get back on track. I think they will. Keep the faith. Gonna need it loud tonight. If anyone's listening to this that's going to the game, be loud tonight. The Clippers need all the help they can get. I'm going to be screaming my lungs out because even though I'm really disappointed with this team, when I'm at the stadium, it's been something that I just love to do, and it's a happy place for me. Like, let me get a little sentimental for a second here. Let me get a little personal. I don't have a partner right now in this show, so I got to get you guys to know me a little bit. And it's funny because somebody made like a review or a comment and said that like this guy's a Laker fan. So funny to even say that. But I grew up going to games and sitting in section 301 with my family, with my mom and my dad and my sister. And when I went to the games, it didn't matter what was going on in school. It didn't matter if you're having problems with your friends. You go to the game and you just, for that 2.5 hours, nothing matters. You cheer on your team. You scream your lungs out. You're not just there to watch the game. You're there to root for the team. Because if I were just there to watch the game, I'd watch it at home. And I've been doing that since I was 7 years old. Since Sam Cassell, since Elton Brand, since Cat, since Maggette, since Sean Livingston. And even those dog years with Baron Davis and, the post-Elton Brand. I kept the faith, man. And at times I can seem a little pessimistic right now because I've set such big goals for the Clippers before the season. And it is weird being that favorite. I made a whole episode about embracing being the favorites. But it's so hard as a Clipper fan to embrace being a favorite and embrace high expectations when you're so used to being let down. And you're so used to being so happy when you have no expectations. That's just the Clipper way. And no matter what, I'm never going to give up on this team. I've put myself down for life. Like people say, you don't have a badge of honor for supporting a shitty team. Oh my God. I'm sorry for cursing, guys. You don't get a badge of honor for supporting a bad team. To me, I have so much respect for the people that support teams like the Clippers, the Buffalo Bills, the Cleveland Browns, the Sacramento Kings, because it's not easy to do this. It's not easy when you care so much about something that you have no control over and you put yourself through the stress. And for some people, they find a way to fan without stressing. And maybe it's because they just have a great life that sports doesn't really affect them that well. I'm a single 24-year-old man living in Los Angeles trying to figure out my life. And sometimes the Clippers winning just does so much for me. And sometimes the Clippers losing also does so much for me. And it's tough. Like, I just, at the end of the day, my point is this. I know I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but I'm going to be there supporting this team till I take my last breath. It doesn't matter if we win 0 championships or win 5. I'm going to be supporting them to my last breath, as negative as I can be on the podcast. And I think I've been more positive on Locked On than obviously my own channel. But I am always going to support the team when I'm there. I may boo on occasion. I've honestly only booed like once or twice in my entire life. But when the ball tips off, I'm screaming defense as loud as anybody in my section. And I'm always going to do whatever it takes to help the team win. Because obviously you don't have that much control as a fan, but you can try to be loud and do your best. And that's what I'm going to do. And no matter what, win or lose, championship or bust, I'm always going to be here supporting this team. Always. Never give up. It's going to be that much sweeter when we do win the championship. I don't know when it's going to be, but I know we're going to have one in the Ballmer era. I just know it. Whether it'll be with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, I'm not sure. But there's always, Clipper fans that are optimistic do make one point that I'll never go against. We've been through so much worse. We have an owner that has bust down bread. For anybody that's a little older, that means insane amounts of income. And he will do anything to win. And that's coming from Jerry West himself. So keep the faith. I know the winning streak is coming soon. And you know what? It starts tonight against the Rockets. As I sign off with the age-old proverb, go Clippers. I love all you guys very much. I love you, Clipper Nation. We're going to get through this together.